Okay, today's segment is going to be called Feuding Fools. This is William K. Murtaugh, Witness 1, and today I'm going to discuss feuding fools. It's a tongue twister. I was having a hard time getting it right, but I think I finally got the hang of it. Anyway, many of us have witnessed what has to be one of the oddest and most disconcerting rants ever made by an individual on YouTube. And this was the so-called rebuttal that Timothy Charles Holmseth made to E-Clause, accusing Chris Hallett and Kirk Pendergrass of being bald-faced liars who did absolutely nothing to get Field McConnell out of jail, and may, in fact, have made the situation a whole hell of a lot worse. At least in Timmy Holmseth's mind. In his almost hour-long, profanity-laced rant, Tim Holmseth threw a barrage of accusations against Kirk Pendergrass and Chris Hallett of E-Clause. He said that they lied about his arrest warrant being lifted. They lied about working through the United States government, specifically Congress, to try and do something about getting Field McConnell free. He accused Chris Hallett and Kirk Pendergrass of being frauds and doing nothing more than being in business to collect donations and not help anyone. And on that, many would probably agree. Kirk Pendergrass swung back, blaming not only Tim Holmseth for the mess that Field McConnell is in, but also blaming too many chiefs, as he called them. And he repeated over and over again the name Randi as being the ringleader of this little mess. Now, since he did not use Randy's last name, I'm not going to use Randy's last name. Everyone knows who this woman is anyway, but I'll leave the use of her last name to others. Anyway, so Tim Holmseth and Kirk Pendergrass are having this little feud about who's telling the truth and who's a liar, going back and forth with all these accusations and declarations and calling out each other over various misdeeds, which is to be expected in this sort of thing. And the thing I find interesting here is that with these two going back and forth at each other's throats, everybody's just sitting back and watching all this. There's very little of any reaction from anyone. There's absolutely no reaction from Randy, and there's little reaction among anybody else. You have people going over to Field McConnell, you have people going over to Kirk Pendergrass's E-Clause site and accusing them of being crooks, and also saying that he never should have gotten involved with Tim Holmseth in the first place. And you got much the same thing going on over at Tim Holmseth's Facebook page and any support page that's up for Tim Holmseth. So there's a crisscross of feuding and accusations and discontent and confusion going on in this whole situation. But there's something that is not absolutely clear to people that should be. Tim Homseth has been used and used for a long time. He has been allowed to basically make a fool out of himself. He's become the class clown. He reminds me of a kid in school that in order to be popular, he went along with everything that the popular group wanted, and in the process they made the kid look like an absolute idiot, and the kid never realized it until he was fully grown and understood how badly he was treated when he was in school. Tim Homseth is allowed to come up with all these wild theories about postmasters of the world, the Title IV flag, and all this ever-increasing odd conspiracy nonsense that keeps coming out of his mouth on a daily basis. But in the end, people have to ask, why is this? Why is Tim Homseth allowed to deteriorate to this extent? Why isn't anybody helping him? The answer, quite simply, is it would not be advantage to this group to do that. The last thing they need is someone that is sane, lucid, and aware of his surroundings in such a way that he would realize that, like the kid in school, he's being used and allowed to make a complete fool of himself in the process. Tim Homseth is in a lot of trouble. He's in serious trouble because of the people he's hanging around with. These are dangerous, powerful people that have an agenda of their own. They have something planned, something that they're carrying out. They have a mission, and Timothy Homseth is not part of it. What Tim Homseth is a scapegoat, and he's also a diversion. There's been something going on here for the past several months that people have paid very little attention to. And this is because these people that are handling Tim Homseth have done an effective job of making people look the other way. And in this, Field McConnell was also made to be a scapegoat. The people that are handling Tim Homseth were handling Field McConnell before Timothy Homseth was tapped to join in on this little game. These people knew Field McConnell inside and out. They knew his strengths, they knew his weaknesses, and they knew what it would take to get into his radar and into his sphere of influence, and as a result, get to his audience. And these handlers wanted to do this and do it in a way where nobody clearly knew what was going on. All these people could do is guess and speculate, but never really understand why these handlers were going after Field McConnell, Timothy Homseth, and all these other oddballs that seemed to join the fray. But the answer is coming. It's coming hour by hour and day by day. The picture is becoming clear. And it was made clear to me by events that happened within the last week or so, almost from the 1st of January forward. And it seems that the key to all this is the state of Colorado and a woman that will eventually be going on trial there. Now, Cindy Abug, or however the hell you pronounce her name, had a little bit of a problem with Child Protective Services. She had brought her child from Florida to Colorado, according to her, in order to seek treatment for a mysterious illness that seemed to be affected by the Florida heat and other factors. And the problem for her was that when the hospital examined the young man and saw that his current condition, they grew concerned, went to CPS, and CPS took the child away from the mother temporarily, put the child in foster care in order to determine just what the heck was going on. Well, the mother naturally wasn't too happy about that, and she started to fight the system. But instead of getting a lawyer and doing it the legal way, she started accusing Democrats and the deep state and so forth of being involved in what happened to the child. And gradually, over a period of time, she began to get involved with people that were in the QAnon cult. And one can speculate that in the process of getting to know these people, they began to fill her with the idea that she should consider kidnapping her child back from the people that had the child in their charge, and to do so armed if necessary, if only to prevent any quote-unquote problems that might result on the attempt. And the first sign that she was going to do something of this nature was when she did not show up to court. Now, this is a very familiar pattern we see here, because this is what happened to Timothy Charles Homseth. The first time Timothy Charles Homseth was charged with his criminal behavior, he did go to court. Now, he did get into talking about sovereign citizen nonsense and declaring that he was a man walking upright with blood flowing through his veins and not a member of this corporation, which is sovereign citizen propaganda that has been espoused since the beginning of this movement. And Timothy Homseth fell right into the trap. And the handlers realized just how easily Tim Homseth could be handled. They were probably given advance notice of this by Robert David Steele, who had used Tim Homseth to his advantage before, and decided why not let this group use Timothy Charles Homseth for their alleged plan. And so this transplanted woman from Colorado soon became a bit of a star. She started calling in to the various sovereign citizen and anti-establishment right-wing social media talk shows that were flourishing all over the internet, primarily on YouTube and Facebook. And she eventually came across Field McConnell. Now, this was not by accident. She was advised, told, or otherwise influenced to call Field McConnell. Now, while Field McConnell may have 44,000 subscribers and about 10,000 of them who are active, he's a relatively small potato in this potato garden of right-wing social media types out there. There are people out there who do this sort of thing that have 1 million or more followers. So he was a growing presence, but not an extremely well-known one. But he was big enough that they might be able to carry out their mission. Now, unfortunately, for Miss Akbud, these people had the same kind of grievance against the government and, in some cases, CPS as she had. So it was a whole hell of a lot easier to influence her bad judgment with bad advice. And that's exactly what happened, according to the information I've been getting quite regularly for quite some time. And the scenario went something like this. Miss Akbud had herself a boyfriend or associate who she claimed was some kind of government agent or someone of some prominence who was generally supposed to be some kind of protection, security guard. They eventually, according to others, became romantically involved. Now, the guy was not armed by witnesses that had seen this individual at a meeting, so it was not clear what kind of protection he was supposed to offer, since he was not armed. Other than maybe being a male, and his presence alone might deter some people from doing something ill-advised. But other than that, it didn't appear like he was going to be that useful. But as it turns out, he was. He was a chauffeur, and he was someone that was able to procure weaponry. Which brings us to Field McConnell. Now, according to people that have listened to Field McConnell's material, and also investigations that are going on into this matter, it was Field McConnell, this Randy with the unmentioned last name, and a number of other people who we don't hear about very much, who caused Field McConnell to give this woman weapons. The weapons that eventually would be found in the woman's car when she was arrested in Montana. Now, both the woman, Miss Akbud, and her companion called in to Field McConnell's show. And it was quite clear from that conversation and conversations that had happened prior to this time that, in fact, there were plans to kidnap the child and get the child somewhere. Now, between April, when the woman failed to appear in court and a warrant was sworn out for her arrest under the same circumstances that both Phil McConnell and Tim Homestead found themselves in. Phil McConnell's slightly different, but Tim Homestead's situation is exactly the same as hers, in that he was evading law enforcement because he had a warrant out for his arrest for failure to appear in court. And excuse me if I'm jumping around a little bit, but I'm doing this while driving. I don't do things by script, so this is kind of on the fly, so to speak. Kind of like Timothy Homestead's rant was last night. But getting back. Now, the information I've been getting is this. At some point, Cynthia and her boyfriend went to Florida and was staying for an unknown period of time with a man who was living with his 80-year-old mother. Now, this man is, I believe, either in his 50s or his 60s. He's, a little bit old to be living with his 80-year-old grandmother, but that's the situation. It's, if not unusual, the situation's a little weird. But at any rate, the description that's been given out is that this 80-year-old woman's son aided and abetted a fugitive of on the run from a federal felony warrant because these are federal charges she was being hit with in Florida. And then the couple left. They went to another state, surprisingly, that no one would realize it had anything to do with. And that's at this point that I can't say too much, other than there's an issue in the background here that is rather extraordinary. And if these people had any idea what they've got themselves involved in, they would probably run to the hills and pray to God the federal government doesn't come calling on their door. But unfortunately, this is what's going to happen. Because the part that I'm not telling and cannot tell is quite extraordinary and may in fact answer a lot of questions about what's going on here. But after their stay in this unknown state, or unnamed state, I should say, they proceeded back up to either Colorado or Montana. It's not clear which yet, because I haven't been given the exact timeline. I've been given a general pattern. But the fact of the matter is, these people were able to transport or drive all over the United States and then wind up either back at Field McConnell's or back in Colorado and eventually Montana. That part is not clear. What is clear is it is alleged that not only did Field McConnell give weapons to this couple, but he may have also given them a car. Because it appears that the car they were originally in was not in that good a shape. And so they were given another automobile. That part hasn't been made clear if it's true or not. It's just part of the speculation that I've been given regarding the activities of these two individuals. But what is clear is there is somebody pulling the purse strings here. And one name keeps coming up. It came up with an interview that I did with two people on my show last week. It came up with Kirk Pendergrass and his tirade against Tim Holmseth. And that is Randy. For it seems that Randy is the treasurer in this little organization. She's controlling the purse strings. Now, whether she's using her own money or she's getting financial resources from other people is something I cannot talk about. But the fact is that all speculation and all leads are going towards the mysterious Randy. She is smack dab in the middle of all this. And if anybody wants to know who the godmother is, it's the mysterious Randy, or so it is alleged. So the question is why Randy would have gotten herself involved in something that might result in her serving life in prison. It's hard to say. It could be the philosophy that, she's part of the sovereign citizen movement and she's so deeply enthralled with it and so forth that she would risk her freedom to accomplish whatever mission she sets out to do in that regard. And that this alleged planning of a kidnapping of this child is part of the mission. And it would probably, if I was able to release the information that I had regarding this Colorado case, some elements that are within it, it might make clear why Randy is allegedly involved in this particular situation. It's not some lofty belief that the mother is unfairly treated. there's something quite different and quite unexpected that's going on. It was a surprise to me when I found this out. And although I'm chomping at the bit to explain to everybody just exactly what's going on, I cannot. This is extremely sensitive and confidential information, and I have to keep it to myself for now. But it's going to come out. And how is this all going to come out? Well, let me paint you a little picture of what's coming up in the next few months in the state of Colorado. Now, Miss Abcug, or however how you pronounce her name, is out on bail. And she's been given strict instructions of what she can and cannot do while she's free. And it is said that this woman is cooperating with authorities. Now, that statement should be sending a chill up some unnamed individuals out there, because this woman knows a hell of a lot of what's been going on over the past year. And she can get a lot of people thrown in jail. Now, this woman herself is facing a good long period of time in prison for this attempted kidnapping. You know, the prosecution has mountains of evidence to put this woman away. So this woman has a choice. She can either keep her mouth shut and take one for the team, or she can work with whoever ultimately represents her. She's probably going to get a public defender. And a public defender is a lawyer. You know, case like this, they might assign a pretty good one. But in any respect, one of the basic things that lawyer is going to do is to try and figure out a way to lighten the load on this woman. And since the state of Colorado has a pretty damning and strong case against this woman for all kinds of things, you know, including Munchausen by proxy and the harming of her child because of that, to this kidnapping, this woman might be offered immunity from prosecution on the more serious charge. Or she may wind up getting immunity from prosecution on all charges, as long as she, A, cooperates fully with authorities, tell them completely what's going on, and she would do this by pleading guilty to the charges and naming names, and in detail give what each and every individual did to contribute to her situation. And that goes that they're going to want to know where the guns came from. They're going to want to know where the car came from. They're going to know where these people have been since April of 2019, the day she skipped court. They're going to want to know all of this. And so this woman and her companion are both going to have to become state's evidence. They are going to have to rat out whoever it is that's involved in all this. They're going to have to say, this person financed my trips. This person gave us the car. This person gave us the weapons. This man down in Florida with the 80-year-old mother gave us a place to stay and help all along the way. He gave us all kinds of advice. He instructed us as to what we should do. And he even gave us room and board, possibly a little bit of financial help to get us through this situation. And there are other people. And then she's going to explain why she did what she did. And that part is going to be the intriguing part, because the reason has very little, if anything, to do with the child itself. It has to do with somebody else in the background that gave her help. And who this woman is, because yeah, it is a woman, and it's not Randy, this is somebody else. And the reason this woman might herself be in a precarious situation. But in the end, as things start to coalesce and the surrounding investigations that are going on regarding what happened with the Q group and this particular woman, eyes are going to be looking around for someone to take the blame for all this. And this is where the scapegoats come in. This is where people are going to realize that they are in serious trouble. They're going to go get their own lawyers, and they're going to offer information in exchange for immunity from prosecution. For in the end, that's the greatest motivator of all. If any government, be it state or federal, offers you immunity from prosecution for a capital crime, a crime which will get you put in prison for the next 10 or 20 years, you're going to take that advice, especially if you're 60 or 70 years old. You're going to say, hey, I may not like the court system, I may not like this corporation we're in, but I don't like the idea of sitting on a barge in dry dock for the next 20 years either. Because that's, people are calling jail a barge in dry dock. They come up with these weird nautical terms. But I don't care what you call it. You can call it prison, you can call it jail, you can call it a corporate institution, or you can call it a barge or a ship. But you're stuck on that thing. And the only way to get off that thing is to play by the rules of the captain of the barge. And the captain of the barge says, you're going to tell us who's involved in this whole situation that's been going on for the past year, or you're going to be on this barge, or even a worse barge, for the rest of your life. And that barge is not going to be Noah's Ark. And it's not going to be a dry dock Noah's Ark sitting in the middle of Tennessee someplace. It's going to be a building with concrete walls or cinder block walls, concrete floor, a steel bed, a steel urinal, a steel sink, sometimes on top of the urinal. Or a toilet, actually. They don't have urinals in these things. You do both in the same container. And in the presence, mind you, of everybody else. There's no such thing as having a privacy curtain in a jail cell, because they have to see it all times. So you're going to be taking a poop, and everybody's going to know you're taking a poop, because they're either going to smell it, or they're going to sit there and watch you take it. Kind of an interesting side note of life in prison. But, so that's the future for a number of people. Now, in these situations where you have a conspiracy among a group of people, the government wants the ringleader. The government wants the people in charge, the person in charge. They want the top gun. They don't care about the little people. They don't care about Timothy Homestead. They don't care about the man with his 80-year-old grandmother, unless he had something significant as far as a role in this situation. So, if any one of the participants in this little mess are listening, or anybody that knows these participants, I would suggest consider getting a lawyer and asking the lawyer if they are in any trouble. Because remember, you got lawyer-client privilege. And you're going to, you're just going to have to stoop and get one of these Esquire people, a bar-licensed lawyer, to sit down with you and listen to your story. Hold nothing back. Say exactly what you did. Because the lawyer can't go to the cops and say, guess what I just learned? The lawyer has to keep this stuff quiet. The lawyer cannot say a word. A lawyer is probably the only person you can trust. If you get a good, qualified criminal lawyer, it's the best advice that I could give you. Even though I'd like to see the whole bunch of these people thrown in jail, I'd rather take a half a loaf than none, and if that half a loaf would get rid of the ringleaders of this little enterprise. So it behooves certain individuals out there, and they know who they are, that if you only had a minor role in this mess, or you had something so important to offer to the prosecutors that the level of your involvement really didn't matter all that much, you might want to consider getting yourself a good criminal lawyer. Explain your situation to the lawyer. Say, I may have gotten roped into something here that I really had no intention of doing. I had no idea this was wrong, or I was misled, or I was caught up in the moment, or something. To use as extenuating circumstances to get yourself an immunity deal to go into court and testify against whoever was behind all this nonsense. And how it all went down. That's your chance. You take it now before it's too late, or you can hopefully hope you get your newfound friends as cellmates, because sooner or later, the government's going to nail whoever did all this. And they're going to take everybody in one fell swoop. So, if you're someone that gave room and board to these two while they were on the run, if you were someone who gave them weapons while they were on the runs, if you're someone who gave them a car while they were on the run, if you gave them money, or if you knew where they were and didn't report them, you're involved in harboring a fugitive from justice on a felony warrant. And that's pretty damn serious. I've talked about this in the past. I've tried to give warnings about this because I had knowledge that this particular investigation was going on, and it was about 50% of the reason I have been talking about this. I've known about this case since before this woman was arrested, and I couldn't talk about it. Once the woman was arrested, then a few things, like what I'm talking about now, could come out. At each stage of this situation, I'm able to give out more and more and more information. But now you know that part of what's been going on all these months with all this government stuff going on, and with Field McConnell and Timothy Holmes Seth and a few others being in the center of this investigation, that it is this woman that triggered it. Because the government knew almost immediately when that woman left that Field McConnell was involved. Because Field McConnell, through his radio show or his YouTube channel and other communications, let the cat out of the bag. Because that's the problem with conspiracies. The more people you have in a conspiracy, the less you have control over the conspiracy. And enough people screwed up in this operation that the authorities investigating it were able to follow it. And so now we have a key element coming up here. The woman's about to face trial. She has a public defender. And the public defender is going to tell her that the best thing she can do is she can negotiate for immunity from prosecution, or at a minimum a reduction of the charges against her. And she's going to use a rather interesting argument. She's going to use the Munchausers to her advantage. And she's going to use the majority public opinion about the QAnons to her advantage. Her daughter actually gave her a way out. Or she's going to say she was a woman in a desperate situation. She had lost her son. It may have been due to her mental state coming to use Munchausers by proxy to gain attention, that there may have been something going on in a relationship that she had with the biological father, or other factors that caused this woman to do something she never would have done under any other circumstances. She's an educated woman. She's a woman that has knowledge of how things work, yet she allowed herself to be roped in to this cult. She said these people are experts in grooming you, getting you into the cult, getting you to believe in what they believe in. They claim that they're in the same situation you are, that CPS took their children and all this. And they indoctrinated her and convinced her that they had the answer, that they had a way for her to get her child back. And in her desperation, as a last resort, she did what she did. And the lawyer's going to say, add this. Take responsibility for what you've done. Say, I realize that I've done wrong. I realize I should not have done what I did. I give my explanation as just that, an explanation. It's not an excuse. I take full responsibility for what I've done. I'm guilty of what I've done. I'm going to throw myself on the mercy of the state of Colorado. And I'm going to say, I offer this information about everyone involved in this, if I can just be given another chance. If I can please be allowed at some point to be reunited with my son, under supervision if necessary. I promise to get medical help for my condition, blah, 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 blah. And if she does this sincerely and correctly and has the right public defender, she might just beat the rap. But she is going to have to turn on those she helped. She's going to have to name names. She's going to have to be specific. She's going to have to give the who, what, when, where, and why of all of this. And this should be on the minds of anyone that had any role, no matter how minor, in this woman being on the run for these months and contributed to the circumstances that led to this woman's arrest in Montana. Because either she is going to speed up the process, which is quite likely, or the government's going to find out anyway. And so if you beat this woman to the punch and come forward and say, hey, I've got information. I can put X, Y, and Z in jail, but I want immunity from prosecution. How can I do that? The answer is simply, you go get yourself a goddamn lawyer, first of all. Get yourself a damn good lawyer. Have the lawyer listen to everything you have to say and advise you accordingly. And I would guarantee that a good bar licensed attorney is going to tell you that you need to contact the authorities in Colorado. And the lawyer probably has a way to do that, or knows someone who can. They can get you consideration along those lines, that you might be able to escape going to jail because of something that you did, if you can get someone that's closer to this situation prosecuted. You won't have to abandon your 80-year-old grandmother while you're serving time in jail. You won't have to leave your sons or your daughters or your wife or your grandparents or your parents or anyone, all those loved ones, because of something that you did, a mistake that you made. You won't have to leave your spouse or loved one, anyone that you feel close to. You'll be able to keep your job. You'll be able to keep all your personal belongings if you're able to obtain immunity from prosecution for whatever information that you give. The worst that would happen in a lot of cases involving some of you people, is you might get probation. You might be told that you have to leave the Q movement, which is probably the best thing that could ever happen to you. It's hard to say, because it's going to be up to the information that you give to authorities and how you actually got involved in all this. Now, to some of you, I offer you this. I might, can't make any promises, but I might know someone that you can get in contact with that can help you out. Now, you can contact me anonymously either on my Twitter account or through my Gmail, which is widely known, smartwitness1@gmail.com, easy to remember. And I will forward the information to someone I know that's involved in the investigation who may be able to help you. I can't make any promises. My best advice to you is to go today and get a lawyer and let the lawyer advise you on what to do. And if that lawyer wants to contact me and prove that he's actually a bar certified attorney, then I will get him in with who's involved in the investigation of this woman and perhaps get you out of your mess. But at some point, people have to start coming to their senses and realizing that they may have got themselves in over their head on whatever it is that's going on with this task force and the crusade and the outside people that have gotten themselves into this situation. Because once the trial starts with this woman in Colorado, that's when stuff is going to start hitting the fan. That's when people are going to start getting their unwanted visits. That's when the investigators are going to knock on their door and say, are you the one that gave the guns to this couple? Are you the one that housed these people when they came down here to live with your grandmother or your mother? Are you the one that gave them the car? Are you the one that gave them money for all the gasoline? Are you the one that fed them? Are you the one that gave them a bed to sleep in? Are you the one that gave them this so-called legal advice? I mean, you've been named as being part of all this. We have things on tape. We have things on paper. We have pictures. We have direct testimony. We have all kinds of evidence. So if you come clean and give us A, B, and C, we may just cut you a break. It's your choice. That's going to happen. And it's going to be up to each and every one of these individuals to make a decision. Because some of them may not get that offer. Some of them, they may just show up at the door and arrest them right there on the spot. Because some of the crimes that's been committed here are that serious that they may not bother with an immunity offer. They may say, the hell with it. You're just guilty. We're going to arrest you. So, to those individuals, you may want to think long and hard about what you did in this whole process. And think of the worst case scenario. That's what I do. Whenever I do something, be it in business or any other decision, I say, what's the worst that can happen from what I do? And then I decide whether or not it's worth the risk to take that action. That's what you need to do. You need to decide, what is the worst that can happen if I withhold information from the authorities about my participation in these events? What's the worst that could happen to me? And I think you're going to find an answer that you don't like. Then you're going to have to decide what will happen if I decide to come clean. And yes, you say, what's the worst that could happen? Worst of what happened is you go to jail anyway. That your information is not valuable enough. But this is why you need a lawyer. You need to get yourself a good, qualified criminal lawyer. One that's a member of the Bar Association, that has experience in criminal law, that can advise you as to what the hell you need to do. Because that's what it's going to take to get you on the road to redemption. is to get yourself in the hands of a good qualified attorney who knows what the hell needs to be done to get you out of your little mess, or to at least mitigate the damage that you've done to yourself and to others. You know, and it's like the old adage says, you can't lead a horse to water and force him to drink it. The horse must be willing to drink the water. So you're at that point, unnamed individual out there. You're at that point where you're being led to the water trough of opportunity. You're being led to the water trough of a place where you can make a decision that could affect you for the rest of your life. You can either account for your actions and say, I made a mistake. I made several mistakes. Or you can say, screw it, I'm going to fight this. I don't like the system. A wrong decision could cost you your freedom. It could cost you everything you own. It may cost you a marriage if you're in one, or a relationship. It may cause you to lose custody of any children you might have. Your reputation could be shot. You have a lot to lose, depending on what your decision is. And that's what you need to consider. Don't worry about what people are going to say on Twitter or on YouTube or Facebook or anywhere else. This is the internet. The internet doesn't matter. What matters is you and your personal life with the people around you that you live with every day. Your mothers, your fathers, your wives, your brothers, your sisters, your husbands. Everybody in your individual network, including your employers, people you associate with. Think to yourself, what will happen if you become involved publicly in this trial in Colorado when it happens? When all these names start coming out, when the members of the QAnons that was talked about on the TV report that you see on Twitter come out, that it was A, B, C, and D that this woman went to. A did this, B did this, C did this, and D did this. Where are you on that little alphabet? You could be E, F, G, H. But I guarantee you this, the government already knows. Both the state and the federal government know who you are. They have every name, every address, everything about you. But what they're after are witnesses, because they want to build up the foundation. See, every legal case is built on something called a foundation. It's just like both the defense and the prosecution build a case like you would build a house. They start out with the foundation, the foundational evidence. It's what you hear in an opening argument in a trial. This is what we're going to offer the jury. A, B, C, D happened. This is our evidence. This is our witnesses, so on and so forth. They lay out in detail what the crime or crimes are. And then the other side does the same thing. One side will argue their foundation of what happened, and the other side will come in and do the same thing. And then it's up to the jury through the process of the trial to listen and try and understand just exactly what happened. And it is at the end of this trial, when the judge says the jury is dismissed to deliberate, that the fates of one or more individuals will be decided. But then before the main trial even begins, there's preliminary hearings. There's all kinds of things that happen in these preliminary hearings. You start to get an idea when you're following these cases of what the evidence is going to be offered. And it's then that the public is going to start learning about who the principals are in all this. Because when they start having discovery hearings and hearings to determine what evidence is going to be allowed in court and what evidence is not going to be allowed in court, that's when all this is going to start to unravel. And this is where the pressure is going to start building up on people that did not come forward. Because the jury in the end, may not be able to consider everything it hears. Because there's some evidence that won't be allowed in because it's, they come up with all kinds of different little terms as to why certain evidence won't come in. It's, there's a big word that that says that the evidence would be, it's called prejudicial, one of these tongue twisters. Basically, it means the evidence is so bad it would be an unfair disadvantage to the defendant, so it's not allowed, or something along those lines. They just, it's really bad evidence. They won't allow it because it's not fair to the defendant. And there's all kinds of things that may not be allowed in, but in the end, it won't matter, because all this information is going to be out in the public sector. The trial by the 13th juror, us, people that know you, people that have seen you in the grocery store, people that you work with at work, they're going to see all this evidence, whether it gets admitted into the main trial or not. They're going to say, what kind of a person is this that gets involved in this crap? I've known this person for years, and he or she took part in this stuff. I want nothing to do with that person. You're going to find yourself in the middle of a gossip fest. All kinds of debates are going to start coming up as to why in hell did you get involved with this nut job group. You may have one or two supporters, but the vast majority of people that you personally have to deal with are going to think you're nuts. And they're going to think, why would we have anything to do with this person? Why would we hire this person to do a job? Why would we go to this person's place of business? Why would we buy a house from this person? So on and so forth. There's going to be a hell of a price to pay whether you go to jail or not for your actions, because it's all going to be out there. Everybody's going to know. Not just a few feuding groups on the internet. It's going to be the public as a whole. Your wish may come true. Mainstream media just might pick up the story because of the untold involvements here of certain individuals. There are some very important people involved in this mess. And all this is going to come out. It's going to affect a lot of people in ways you don't understand. So the people that are holding out, the people that seem to think that they're going to show the U.S. government as a corporation run by maritime law, and they're going to go follow the advice of some postmaster of the world, or someone who is a member of the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, or some law school out of Florida, you're going to find that they're making some very serious mistakes and judgments getting involved in this sort of thing. And they're the ones that are going to go to jail. And if you don't do it right, the ones that are truly guilty, the ringleaders, the one responsible for all this, are going to walk away laughing because they found their little scapegoats. They found all these little people. They're willing to sacrifice their future for a lost cause. Also, they could help out someone that nobody knows about. That's the future that a number of people face tonight. And it's these people that need to really wake up and smell the coffee. Decide if they want to spend the rest of their life in prison or repair the damage they've done to themselves and move on with their lives. It's decision time, folks. Make up your mind. This is William K. Martin, Witness 1. Have a good one.